Frank Jackson in Westwood, where protesters fight for a free Palestine. That story coming up. I'm Frank Jackson in Canoga Park, where police announced the arrest of a suspect in a double murder that shocked Los Angeles. That story coming up. I'm Frank Jackson in MacArthur Park, where British royalty takes the stage. I'll explain after this. I'm Frank Jackson in the Newswatch newsroom. Coming up next, a deadly house fire in East LA. Breaking news out of Hollywood this afternoon. That's where a two-car crash left 2 people dead and 2 standoffs in one night. Those stories and more next on Newswatch.
Reporter Frank Jackson joins us from the scene of the protest. Frank?
That's right, Jay. We're outside the Federal Building here in Westwood, where this demonstration is taking place. Now, if you look behind me here, you see about 50 or 60 people hoping to have their message heard all the way in Washington, D.C. They banged on homemade drums, they waved their flags.
End the siege of Gaza now!
And they shouted in the street. These protesters are calling for an end to the wars in the Middle East and for Israel to leave Gaza.
Palestine will never die!
Mike Preisner says he wants his concerns to be heard by the U.S. federal government.
The concern is the occupation of Palestine by an apartheid settler state known as Israel. This is apartheid just like we saw in South Africa. And just like South Africa, it was a people's movement that ended it, and that's what's happening today.
Organized by a coalition of anti-war groups, the protest took place outside the Federal Building in Westwood. It was one of 5 demonstrations held across the U.S. designed to coincide with today's meeting between President Barack Obama and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
This is unacceptable!
One of the organizers, Muna Kupti, says this demonstration is part of a national movement.
In front of the White House and in cities across the country, including here in Los Angeles, we're protesting against his visit because we don't believe that the United States should have friendly relations with a man who's responsible for the suffering of the Palestinian people.
Across the street, pro-Israel supporter Richard Levick made his opinion heard. He seems to think that some of the protesters are misguided.
I have a problem with the non-Muslims that want to make this their issue. And I believe, and they'll have to prove me otherwise, that it's hatred for Jews that's built into their religious upbringing, which I believe is usually Christian.
Back here at the protest, organizers are saying that this is only one of many protests that will be taking place over the next few months. From Westwood, Frank Jackson, Newswatch LA.
Thanks for that report, Frank.
You're looking at a picture of Manuel Carmona, a man Los Angeles police detectives called a double murder suspect. Investigators say he killed 21-year-old Martha Carmona and her 6-year-old daughter last May for no apparent reason. At a news conference today, lead detective Dave Petit talked about the capture of Carmona.
It was over 100 interviews that were conducted, countless hours of investigation that was done. This was basically a puzzle that was put together piece by piece by piece with the entire investigation brought together. It led us to Manuel Carmona as being the suspect responsible for both these murders.
The double murder took place on May 14th inside this home on the 6900 block of Remit in Canoga Park. Police say Carmona, who is the mother's uncle, stabbed both victims to death, then pretended for weeks as if nothing happened. Deputy Chief Kirk Albany says the gruesome crime not only shocked the community, but police investigators as well.
For the officers that were there, very, very traumatic experience for them to have to deal with too. We forget that they're human beings. They're professionals, but they're human beings first.
I talked with people in Canoga Park today who were elated to learn that the suspect is now in custody. Vanessa Elias, who lives across the street from the crime scene, says she and her family are relieved.
We barely moved into this neighborhood, so we were really worried as to how things were going to play out, and I'm going to sleep well tonight, and I'm glad the family has closure also.
While the suspect is in custody, this investigation may not be over. That's because police believe Carmona may have been involved in other crimes. From Canoga Park, Frank Jackson, Newswatch LA. Hello, Los Angeles. I'm Frank Jackson with Tinsel Talk. We start today in MacArthur Park, where music fans got a royal treat. Ruth McCartney has been listening to classic Beatle tunes like Eleanor Rigby most of her life. That's because her brother, Sir Paul McCartney, wrote many of the songs around the kitchen table as kids. In MacArthur Park, she says she's having just as much fun listening to the Harmonies Project Youth Orchestra play those tunes.
Well, it brings back so many memories. When I heard the band today, I was thinking, gosh, I remember being there when it all started on our kitchen table. They never dreamed it would go around the world like this. They never even thought it.
The orchestra is part of several groups that are part of the Levitt Pavilion MacArthur Park 2010 opening celebration. Levitt band shells are hosting parties like this in public parks all over the country. Elizabeth Levitt Hirsch, whose father started the celebrated music program, says it's all about the music and the kids. What does this mean to the children? What does it mean to the community?
To the children, this means hope, it means possibility. Everything that a child sees here is larger than life.
How'd you feel about this concert today?
I think it's really good because, a lot of people come and they enjoy it and stuff.
The pavilion will host 50 different concerts this season. Known as a haven for drugs and crime in the past, MacArthur Park is now an oasis for residents. U.S. Congressman Xavier Becerra says it's also a place of peace.
It takes things like this to be able to bring about a peace, an opportunity for safety. You have to create the atmosphere. Parents aren't going to want to let this go. Somebody may want to mess things up. Some gangbanger may try to come along and just ruin it for somebody, but these parents, if they see that this is a jewel for their kids, they're going to fight to keep it.
The concerts are sponsored by the Friends of Levitt nonprofit organization. This was their 4th year hosting the event. For Tinsel Talk, I'm Frank Jackson. Good evening, I'm Frank Jackson in the Newswatch newsroom. A deadly fire in East Los Angeles is our top story tonight. It happened on Vasilla Avenue near 5th Street. You can see smoke pouring from the house as firefighters arrived. Inside, they found an 81-year-old man who was trapped in a bedroom. The fire is under investigation. In Watts, sheriff's investigators had a long night. That's where a hostage standoff ended just a short time ago. Deputies used flashbangs to drive the suspect from the barricaded home. Investigators say the man threatened to kill his wife and daughter after the wife demanded a divorce. Another standoff, this time in Watts. Police had to use tear gas to get the suspect out. Cameras were not allowed near the house, but witnesses say the suspect fought with police after gas forced him out. The man was booked on drug charges. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for watching Newswatch. I'm Frank Jackson. Have a good night.